the October 26, 2011 PDC Board of Commissioners meeting. The next item is an action item, Resolution 6906, authorize Executive Director to execute intergovernmental agreement for land disposition and development of the Oregon Sustainability Center. Lisa.
Mark, there's a power. Bring up the power. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Lisa Abuaf. I'm a Central City Manager with the Portland Development Commission and Project Manager for the Oregon Sustainability Center. As you know, this project is a collaborative public-private higher ed and nonprofit project led by the Oregon University System, Portland State University, a number of private and nonprofit partners, as well as the City of Portland. I want to give specific acknowledgement to OUS leadership to date, including President of PSU and the Chancellor of the Oregon University System. And then before I go into the PowerPoint, give an opportunity to Mark Gregory with Portland State University to make some comments.
Okay, for the record, my name is Mark Gregory. I'm Associate Vice President of Portland State University. I know everyone is familiar with this project. We've been working on it long and hard. I just wanted to come here today to say that we are very excited that we feel we're getting close here. We're getting close to getting this project actually out of the ground. It is a significant project for the university system. It's another collaboration opportunity for the university system. More tangibly for Portland State, this is right in our sweet spot. We are about sustainability. It's one of our fastest growing research areas. Our research is up 60% over the last 3 years. And this building is going to serve as a profound symbol of our global excellence in sustainability. And in addition to that, we are going to put thousands of students through what will be one of the most energy efficient, if not the most energy efficient building in the world. And we think that is going to really transform our image as an institution, and it'll add to Portland's image as a sustainable city. So we're very enthusiastic about this, and I appreciate your support and ongoing partnership.
Thank you, Mark.
So to give a little bit of background, the project is actually called for in multiple strategies and policies across the city, including the economic development strategy as well as the climate action plan, and which has lent itself to other green development projects like Clean Energy Works, our efforts in eco-districts, as well as the Oregon Sustainability Center. And really, PDC's involvement and investment in the project is driven by our economic development strategy, specifically our efforts in the green development and green building sectors. While Portland is part of a regional economy that grew by employment at 12% until 2007, our employment peaked in 2008. Currently, we have an unemployment figure that ranges in the high 9%, let alone the fact that Portland also contributes a significant amount economically to the state of Oregon. So what you see here in the upper left-hand part of the slide is actually simply the impact of the net zero energy system of the building throughout the state of Oregon, both in terms of training our workforce in the design, engineering, and construction of that system, but also in the product development that's necessary for that system, specifically by Sanyo, that's located out of Salem. The immediate impact of the project will actually create 780 jobs, and that's in construction as well as design and that product-based industry of solar as well as other construction materials. Another effort that we've been undertaking significantly, I would say, for the past year to year and a half has been talking about equity goals for the project. As a sustainability center, clearly it is a three-legged stool, and so we've been talking for the past year with a sequence of community partners like NEA, as well as all of the chambers of commerce and community partners, where we went to them and briefed them on the status of the project, the opportunities of the project, and the schedule of when they could expect bidding opportunities to be at their doorstep, such that they could both begin to prepare their workforce for the opportunity because of the living building challenge and the net zero elements of the project, and also know when those bidding opportunities would be out on the street. One of the actions that you have before you today is a construction workforce agreement that you would be authorizing the executive director to enter into that reflects not only PDC's and the city's requirements, but in fact surpasses them. The general contractor on the project, Skanska, has made a commitment of 25%, whereas our policy calls for 20% goal. And we have also done a significant amount of work with the community around professional services and increasing opportunities for both minority and women-owned businesses to be involved in the project on the front end. Last but not least, clearly one of the goals of the project is to maintain Portland's leadership. And that is both in terms of the education and PSU's interest in the building, but also our activities around the research to commercialization cluster or effort. There are significant opportunities that private sector has brought to the table specific to the center. It primarily has to do with the net zero energy system, looking at is there an opportunity to showcase a test floor on this building that would use DC loop, ranging from that to can they showcase some of their battery storage systems off of the solar power PV array for greater efficiency, both for the net zero performance, but also for them to show, for Sanyo to show the full array of their product. There has not only are there projects specific to the building, but in fact there has been a full research consortium convened by Oregon Best using the Sustainability Center as its first key project. You see here below some of the private sector partners who are involved in that research consortium. And then there's also a whole cross-sector of researchers within the Oregon University system from PSU, OSU, and U of O looking at green building and opportunities within the building ranging from its net zero performance to human behavior. So the last time this project was before you, we were entering into schematic design, and what you have on this slide is the results of where we ended up, both in terms of program, and then you'll also see costs as a result of schematic design. We are currently at a building of approximately 130,000 square feet, of which the city would occupy approximately 33,500, and our IGA with the city would commit our resources and land to them being part owners of the building, so a condominium structure of a building. There would also be, this is anticipated to include a conference center, which you see here at 4,000 square feet, which would provide training opportunities, including workforce training opportunities, as well as an action center, which is included as part of the lobby, where companies, the city, our university partners could showcase what Portland does and what Oregon does in the leadership role in sustainability. In terms of costs, you'll note that two significant items have happened since this was last before you. One, the cost has come down, and two, there's no longer a gap. The last time you saw this project, there was a financial gap, and that gap has been covered through both fundraising, private fundraising, foundation fundraising, and a significant federal grant awarded to us by the federal EDA. This continues to carry a cost premium, which we have said since the beginning as we are building a prototype, and there is a cost premium to being a leader in this industry. It's similar to the premium that we believe we found with LEED buildings that has since come down as LEED buildings have proliferated the market. The cost per square foot without land and financing is currently at $434 a square foot, which is relatively comparable to the Port of Portland building that was recently completed at about $415 a square foot. So the action before you today is twofold. One is an IGA with the city for disposition and development of the center. It is a similar action that was considered by council on the 21st of September. It would involve the full disposition and PDC investment in this project with contingencies to be phased over time from construction documents to construction, and then some of our loan revenues that are coming into the South Park Blocks urban renewal area, which is an expired urban renewal area, over the next 15 years, assisting the city with its capital bond payoff. The second action is for authorizing the executive director to enter into a community workforce agreement encompassing our equity requirements and pursuing new opportunities. The immediate commitment would transfer, per that IGA, would transfer up to $1.5 million in TIF to complete a GMP, mitigating costs to the project partners by February 2012, with 50% construction documents anticipated or targeting summer 2012. This is where we are in the fuller timeline. You'll see we are in that lower right-hand box seeking, we sought the city commitment in September. We are here with you today seeking a similar commitment from our board in order to move forward with design. That would then involve design completion sometime in summer into fall, starting construction in 2012, aiming to be completed in 2013. So that is the end of the presentation if you have questions.
Thank you, Lisa and Mark. Over the last 6 months, I have come to the conclusion that this is a really, really important project to the future of both Portland and the state of Oregon for a number of reasons. I think anybody who has been on any of these trade missions to the Far East has come back understanding that this state is branded as a sustainability state, and we export an unbelievable amount of talent, both from an architectural and engineering and subcontractor basis to countries all around the world that want to build sustainable buildings. This would be one of the first buildings to meet the Living Building Challenge. And it would continue to show that we are at the edge of the project, the edge of the world in terms of being able to do this. It not only would provide current jobs in terms of the building, but again, as we look at it, it would provide some of those critical long-term jobs that meets the city's economic development strategy. There will be technologies and products that need to be designed for this that will provide for Oregon manufacturers to get ahead of the curve and be able to provide consulting to other folks as they want to do this. Will there ever be, I don't think we'll ever see living buildings become the standard, but there will be pieces that come out of this building that will become the standard, that it will push technology that far. It's critical that we move the process forward at this point on both the state and the city level. We need to go before the state in February and get authorization for the bond funding, and they want more assurance about how much is this project going to cost, is this project really viable, and what is the time frame for it can be built. And this will get us that information so we can sit in front of them in confidence. At City Council, there was a request for a guaranteed maximum price for final approval. This will get us a guaranteed maximum price. If we didn't move forward with this at this point, there would be at least a 6-month project delay, if not an 18-month project delay, because we'd have to wait for the legislature to come around again. And one of the critical pieces of finalizing this is the private sector portion of the tenancy. And anybody who's in the business of selling office space knows you can't get a tenant to sign up for a building that they don't know what it's going to cost and when it's going to be finished. That just doesn't happen. We have a lot of interest in this project by people who've looked at it for a long period of time, but there is a relatively short window of time when this building has to become available for them to be able to commit. And if we miss that window, we're going to start that process all over again. Again, it would delay it quite a bit. So I'm excited that it's before us today, and I fully support it. John?
Well, I would just heartily second everything that you've just said. And it's stuff that Aneshka and I were talking about on the break. And you do see it when you're in Asia. I mean, we're on the map. This will ensure that we stay on the map and lead on the map, and it's important. Obviously, in tough financial times, it's a little more difficult and a little heavier lift, but it's the right thing to do. I firmly believe it. So I really want to help move this forward. Thank you.
Aneshka?
And I third everything that's been said. Again, when we're trying to be leaders in sustainability, there is a premium to being one of the first that does it, but someone has to, and why not have it be our city when we do have an outstanding reputation throughout the world? So it's an important project. It needs to happen. It will continue to push a lot of initiatives that we have, including having Portland State be one of the world-class universities. I mean, you have to have good research centers to have these kind of programs move forward. So again, I think that we have to stand behind what our city is all about, which is sustainability. So I support it as well.
Thank you. Charles?
Yeah, I won't make everyone suffer through my voice over the box, but needless to say, you can't be a leader without taking some risk. And there's risk in this project. I think everyone knows that. We were talking about the cost of the project. We're talking about rental rates. We're talking about tenancy. But I think it all boils down to where are we trying to go as a city and a state. And this is the type of statement that we have to make and be committed to it, to make it clear that this is what Portland and this is what Oregon is all about. It's our future. So I would second and third everything that has been stated. I would just ask a couple of questions. I think, Scott, you touched on it already, but the state had authorized the bonds at one point, and then they did not reauthorize them. And I think you touched on the 3 points: the cost, whether or not the building is viable, and whether or not it can be completed. If we can present that to the state, I know there are no guarantees, but would we have any reason to believe that we as PDC and the city could commit significant funds, move forward well down the road, and still get rejected?
Well, I'll answer that because I've spent some time working the State House, and you're right, there are no guarantees, but I will say that when they delayed the funding, they had a budget note that required a lot of research and response on the part of the team, and we answered every single question that they asked. Mm-hmm. I think the last piece in my mind that's missing is the commitment of the private tenants. Mm-hmm. That is the only thing that we do not have in hand, because we now have cities' commitment to it. So yes, there are no guarantees, and the big push from here to February will be to finalize some agreements with a significant amount of the private tenants.
Yeah. Okay. Let's assume, we approve this today, we move forward, we commit dollars. The timing of PDC's contributions, and I hate to consider the worst case scenario, but let's say we do everything that we need to do on our side of the equation. The state still is not comfortable and we do not authorize the bonds. The investments we're making in the planning and design, is that anything that can be carried over to something else, or is it can it be conducted in a way that allows it to have multiple usage?
You want to say? Yeah.
What we have felt consistently in this project is that there are lessons learned and information that is coming off of the project that is both unique to the project but also can be abstracted, so that the skills that our architects and engineers are developing around net zero energy buildings, net zero water buildings, and integrated systems buildings are already skills that we see being exported. So one of the pieces of testimony that was before council, and you also have some of the letters that were submitted to council by private sector support, was by Interface Engineering, who was recently selected for a pretty major project in Qatar. And one of the things that made them competitive as part of that interview process was the work that they had done on this project.
Okay.
I would also add, Commissioner Wilhite, I would also add that although the path to financing a building of this sort through private means is a lot more difficult, we would pursue that route if we weren't able to secure state funding on that, and so the work that we complete should be valuable in that regard. That if we were to pursue a Plan B or C, that we would have that work already done. So.
Mm-hmm. And at what point do we actually transfer the land, and what kind of complications does that create if the state does not approve? The land, I would assume, does not get transferred unless the bonds are approved?
That's correct. If in the agreement, there are actually contingencies or precedents prior to both the land closing as well as the construction dollars going over to the city, and they are primarily twofold. There's a bunch of them, but the big ones are actually a development agreement between the city and the university for ownership of the building and for development plans for the building. And And bond authorization. Those are the two major ones so that we know that there's both a fully financed project and there's a project that has an ownership structure agreement between the two major parties.
And you know, just from the public perspective, you look at a building like this, it's not PDC or OUS in the city building a building with the expectation that one day we're going to sell it for a lot of money. We're investing in basically a signature statement for where we're going with regard to clean technology and sustainability. And the reason I state this is when we look at the cost of the building, we look at the rental rates, we look at who's occupying the building. The building is just being designed and structured to pay for itself and provide for educational and employment and development opportunities. Now, if we build a building and we have issue with tenants, and what kind of flexibility or coverage do we have if we have issues with tenants and rents?
Well, there is no risk to PDC. This building will be owned jointly, and OUS and the City of Portland have agreed to take on the risk on a 50-50 basis for the rent. Okay. So they're basically signing 30-year agreements to either lease or guarantee rent from the rest of the building at a 100% rent level.
And it looks like we've got 60% of the occupancy right now between those two, don't we?
That's correct. And then there's also an additional amount of square footage that's, there are letters of intent from a number of the nonprofit partners who have been there since the beginning, some of whom have actually expressed an interest in a 30-year lease. Okay. So they would sign a lease that actually tracks the same timeline of the state and university bonds. And to be very clear, I think they are bonds that are paid off by the revenue of the tenants.
Yeah. Okay, and last two, I appreciate the steps we've taken with regard to making sure that we're as inclusive as possible with regard to who's involved with the development and construction of the building, and I think I heard 25% targets.
That's correct.
Yeah, so thank you very much for that. I'm glad to hear we've taken all the steps we think we need to get out there in the public and make the project known and make the opportunities known to everyone. So that's a very, very positive factor, I think, from everyone's perspective. And the Port of Portland building, I think we see that we've had a similar building constructed at a similar cost. Mm-hmm. So that's another positive aspect. But once again, this is a very, very different building. So I'm enthused and excited that it is moving. And I think all the questions about cost and rents and financial concerns have been addressed to the extent they can today. And that's why I would strongly endorse the project and endorse Chair Andrews' comments. We need to take the steps so that we can bring forward all the information the state needs to move the project forward in earnest and in totality. So those are the questions that I have. I appreciate the presentation, Lisa and Stephen. And sorry, once again, I couldn't be there in person. This is an exciting project, and we've talked about it for some time. So I would just look forward to it moving forward at full speed with all the diligence that we've already brought to bear today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles. So I would look for a motion to approve Resolution 6906, authorize Executive Director to execute intergovernmental agreement for land disposition and development of the Oregon Sustainability Center.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Charles.
Well, before I go, I would hope that everyone in the room would be on hand tomorrow night at the PBA Business Leadership Evening Dinner to watch you receive your Bill NATO Award. And congratulations.
Thank you, Charles.
All right, take care.
All right. And there is no other business before the board today, so we are adjourned. Thank you very much.